Every human being on this planet needs to eat. It is the most basic universal requirement of our biology. But imagine a chef who decides that because everyone eats, he must cook a single meal that pleases all 8 billion people simultaneously. He removes the spice in order to protect the sensitive. He removes the texture in order to protect the weak. He removes the very soul of the dish to make sure he doesn't offend any particular culture, palate, or preference. What do you think he's left with? A plate of lukewarm, unseasoned mush. No one will outright hate it, but absolutely no one will love it. And eventually, once the novelty of the safety wears off, no one will buy it. This is the state of the modern boardroom. We are living in the era of the universal lie. In a desperate search for mass appeal, companies have forgotten how to speak to their target audience. They have been convinced by high-priced consultants and yes men that the goal is to be global, but global is just another word for diluted. They have traded a loyal niche, the people who are willing to walk through fire for their brand, for a global audience that doesn't exist. They are chasing a ghost, and in the process, they are turning their billion-dollar empires into graveyards of mediocrity. They have forgotten that excellence isn't about being for everyone. Excellence is about being exactly what your people want and having the courage to be completely irrelevant to everyone else. Nowhere is this rot more visible than in the gaming industry. Let's perform an autopsy on a $400 million corpse. You have seen the headlines. $400 million spent, 8 years of development, and the result? A game that was shut down only weeks after launch and has become a meme. Concord. But the money isn't the most interesting part. The most interesting part is the arrogance of the fallout. When these projects fail, when the universal mush is rejected by the market, the leaders don't look into the mirror. They don't check the internal architecture of their logic. Instead, they play the blame game. They blame the streamers, they blame the bloggers, they blame the toxic fans who didn't appreciate their vision. They act as if the audience has a moral obligation to buy a product they never asked for. But here's the truth. If a streamer's bad review can kill your $400 million game, the game was already dead. A review doesn't kill a product, it just announces the time of death. Highguard did the same. The developers blamed streamers' bad reviews for the failure of their game. But if your universal appeal was so strong, why was it so fragile? But the truth is, these leaders are starstruck by their own resume. They think their title of CEO gives them the power to dictate what the market should like. They surround themselves with people who told them that mass appeal was a guarantee. But when the reality of the street hits the fantasy of the boardroom, they crumble. Look at the situation with Marathon. The player base is dropping every week, the rot has already set in, and how did communities like Reddit respond to this? Moderators began blocking negative feedback, creating an information blackout. They think by silencing the critics, they are protecting the brand. They are wrong. They're not protecting the game, they're accelerating its decay. You cannot fix a problem you refuse to acknowledge. In the world of excellence, feedback is the only thing that keeps you grounded. But in the world of yes men, feedback is a threat to the vibe. This is the ultimate sign of cowardice in leadership. If you censor the no men, you have officially signed the death warrant of your company. You are no longer running a business, you are running a cult of agreement on a sinking ship. I have said this before. The truth is expensive, but a lie will cost you everything. The lie cost Sony $400 million and Winlight Entertainment over $200 million. And it seems like the lie will cost Bungie over $250 million. If the gaming industry's first sin is arrogance, its second sin is desperation. When a leader has no vision of their own, they become ghost hunters. They stop looking at what the audiences love and start chasing the ghosts of other people's success. Take a look at the rumors surrounding Xbox and the Halo franchise. For decades, Halo was the standard bearer for the first-person shooter. It was a titan built on specific high-skilled niche. But the boardroom rot has even reached the Master Chief. Reports suggest that they are pivoting towards a Halo extraction shooter. Let's look at the logic or lack thereof behind this. Extraction shooter were a gold mine a few years back. The market is already saturated, the trend is already dying, and most importantly, the core Halo fans never asked for this. So why do it? Because executives at the top don't look at the future. They look at the stale data. They see what was popular 2 years ago on a spreadsheet, and they force their world-class teams to build a clone. This isn't innovation. It's a desperate attempt to catch a train that has already left the station. When you turn a legendary franchise into a trend chaser, you aren't evolving the brand, you are diluting its soul. You are telling your loyal fans that their preferences aren't enough, and you're telling the new audience that you are a follower, not a leader. This is what happens when you hire yes men to do a strategist's job. They see the success of Escape from Tarkov or Hunt Shadowdown and tell the CEO, if we put a Halo skin on that, we'll make billions. They forget that Halo is successful because it's Halo. The moment you try to make it everything for everyone, it becomes nothing for anyone. You end up with a product that the fans hate and the trend seekers and optic chasers ignore because they were never interested in playing your game in the first place. You not only end up wasting your money, you are vandalizing a legacy. But this rot isn't confined to a console, it's infecting global cinema, and it's doing so under the guise of modernization. I consider myself a global cinephile. I watch films from Japan, India, Korea, China, and all across Europe. But I don't watch them to see a mirror of my own life. I watch them because I want to see their soul. I want to see the cultural nuances, the specific aesthetics, and the undiluted history of a place that isn't mine. If I wanted something westernized and modernized, I would watch a movie that was made in the West. Yet, look at what is happening with the upcoming Ramayana project. For those who don't know, the Ramayana is an ancient religious epic with designs and depictions that are iconic and thousands of years old. Yet, DNAG, the VFX company handling this film, has decided to modernize the designs. Under the leadership of Namit Manodhra, who is Indian, they are changing the traditional terrifying monsters of the epic into something that looks like it was pulled straight from the Game of Thrones or a generic Hollywood fantasy series. Why? To appeal to a global audience, to make it more relatable to the West. This is cultural vandalism. The West already has the Game of Thrones. They have the Lord of the Rings. They don't need and they don't want a cheap imitation of their own aesthetics coming from India. When the West watches Indian cinema, they watch for the vibrancy, the mythic scale, and for the specific soul of the culture. By trying to westernize the designs, DNEG is insulting both audiences. They are alienating their primary target audience, the billions of people in India who grew up with these stories, and they're trying to bore the global audience with the universal mush that they have seen thousands of times before. You know what's odd? We have already seen this disaster happening with a film called Adipurush. It was a multi-million-dollar failure because it attempted to change the entire aesthetics of the Ramayana to appeal to modernity. They even went as far as to change the nationalities of one of the Hindu gods. It felt forced and angered many. It felt like a yes man in the boardroom looked at the Marvel movie and said, "Do that." When you treat a sacred epic like a generic Hollywood action film, you aren't being innovative. You're being lazy. You are admitting that you don't believe your own cultural substance is enough to hold the world's attention. And as the market proved with Adipurush, and it will likely prove again, the world doesn't pay for imitations. It pays for mastery. And if you're too afraid to stand by the niche of your own culture, you don't deserve to lead it. And I hope the makers of Ramayana understand this and make the necessary changes. To Mr. Manodhra and the team of Ramayana, convenience is an enemy of excellence. The Ramayana is a text of gods, not your sandbox for westernized modernization. If you cannot find the courage to depict the divinity and the monsters as they were written thousands of years ago, you're not the right person for this job. You don't modernize a masterpiece. You either rise to its level or you leave it alone. Now let's look at what happens when a leader refuses to season their dish according to a global palate. Just look at RRR or RRR. SS Rajamouli is a master of his craft, and he didn't make RRR for a boardroom in Los Angeles. He didn't make it to fit into a relatable box of a Netflix executive. He made it for his people. He stayed unapologetically true to the niche. He leaned into the maximalism, the emotions, and the cultural specificities that make Indian cinema what it is. And the result? By being so concentrated in its excellence, the movie became a global phenomenon. It didn't travel because it was generic, it traveled because it was undiluted. Excellence crosses the border without a passport. When you're the best version of yourself, the world will learn your language just to understand what you're doing. Now concentrate the Western blame game that we discussed earlier with what is happening in the gaming world with Crimson Desert. Initially, the response to Crimson Desert was turbulent. There were bugs and gameplay-related frustrations. But the no-men on the internet were so loud that the Korean developers at Pearl Abyss did something revolutionary in the modern age. They listened. They didn't retreat into the boardroom bubble. They acknowledged their flaw, put their heads down, and refined the substance. They didn't pivot to a mass appeal battle pass or a trend-chasing extraction mode. They doubled down on the excellence of their product while fixing the foundation. And the result? Over 5 million players and a massive success. They didn't buy that success with a $100 million marketing campaign for everyone. They earned it by respecting the niche that was already watching them. Here's the final verdict for the CEOs, the companies, and the creators who are currently watching their company hemorrhage money and identity. If you're catering to everyone, you're catering to no one. You are not a leader, you are a servant to a spreadsheet. But if you cater to your people, your niche, then the rest of the world will eventually show up just to see what the hype is about. They won't come because you invited them. They will come because they can hear the cheers of a crowd that loves something. There's a line from a film that many of us have seen, Three Idiots, that every boardroom should have carved into its mahogany table. Don't run after success, run after excellence, and success will have no choice but to follow. Most people are running in circles, chasing the global audience and the mass appeal. They are running after the shadow of success and wondering why they can't catch it. To those people, stop running, turn around, and look at the substance of what you're building. Stop trying to be relatable. Relatability is a consolation prize for those who are not ready to lead. Be substantial. Be the mirror that shows the world what is possible when you refuse to compromise. In my next video, we are going to take this lie of relatability even further. We're going to talk about hollow inspiration and why the phrase, "if I can do it, you can do it too," is the most disrespectful and senseless thing anyone can ever say to you. I will see you then.